Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, we are going to be talking about how if you transform your spouse's life, then yours really may transform as well. And what does this mean in the era of, codependency being so terrible and everybody's supposed to be out for themselves and nobody can impact anybody. And you know what I think about those sorts of ideas. But we will go into how, in fact, you can impact other people, shock of all shocks, and why you should try to. Before that, please do subscribe. My most recent episode is Why Your Wife Doesn't Like When You Drink, and I have about 80 episodes that are subscriber only. Also, follow me on TikTok if you haven't, and follow me on YouTube. And my secret Facebook group, follow that too. That'll be at 100 people soon. So that's a nice environment where people talk to each other about issues that have to do with stuff that we talk about here, like relationships, family, etc. So what do I mean by transform your spouse's life? So what is the thing that your spouse most hates about their life? I mean, what are their frustrations? What do they tell you would be transformative? Do you not even have these discussions? Because if you don't, what are you doing? You should be. You should be having these kinds of discussions because otherwise you're going to wait and end up having to have them in couples counseling and pay to have deep conversations with your spouse, which is, not where you want to be. So the point is you should know what is transformative to your spouse. So let me give you some examples. For some people, it's having a different house, renovating the house, having a beach house. Do I really think these things are all going to be transformative for the person? No, I don't. I mean, honestly, studies show that in 6 months after either paralysis, literally becoming a quadriplegic, or winning the lottery, your baseline level of happy goes back to what it was before the event. So in terms of something very bad or very good happening, generally we go back to our baseline levels of whatever happiness was before. However, does this mean that human beings do not seek to improve their condition as a mainstay of what it is to be a person? No, people try to transform their lives, and this doesn't mean that life changes do not have some impact. They do, you may be kind of more satisfied being your normal semi-depressed self in your beach house than in your regular house. It's true, I mean, there may be some more fulfillment. Things aren't just about being happy, like rating your happiness on a Likert scale at any given moment from 1 to 7. There are also fulfillment, the achievement of dreams and goals. So let's go back to what some options are. I just wanted to get out of the way the person that's like, that renovating that kitchen's not going to make her happy. Yeah, well, you know what? She may be happier with you. She may not be happier, but she may be happier with you. And that is that's the point of where I'm going after my examples. So stop interrupting me, people, with all those questions. Anyway, so another thing, sex. I just did a podcast literally titled, You Could Get Laid Once More Per Week and It's Not Going to Change Anything. But does your husband think it will? Fuck yes, he definitely does. So having more sex definitely is something that men generally, or women when they're the lower libido spouse, think will make them happier. Having a more romantic relationship, going out on more dates, talking to each other more, all of these things. Now again, really, you got to discriminate. Are these things going to cure somebody's intractable depression? No. Are they going to make your type A spouse into somebody who's just really chillaxed? No. Are they going to be happier with you, though, if you're the one who makes this shit happen? Yes. As I say to a lot of people, every woman with depression, and, women have higher rates of depression than men, but men get depressed too, as obviously I've discussed. But so I say, your wife may be depressed, but that doesn't mean that she's unhappy with you. She doesn't have to be unhappy with you. I got plenty of people that struggle with depression, but they think their spouse is all right, at least not exacerbating any problems. So if you have been kind of coasting because your spouse you generally think is kind of a miserable person anyway, and they're going to be unhappy no matter what you do, or they're the kind of person who always wants more and more and more out of life, and they're not going to be happy with anything, you may be right, but they may be happy with you. And then they move their focus to something else. So there's plenty of depressed women who are happy with their spouses. Of course, as a main effect, depression is going to make marriages more unhappy, but there are still women that are depressed that are okay with their husband, and they're like, okay, well, he's trying to help me. It doesn't really help me, but he's trying to help me, and it's not his fault. That's a good place to be when you're married to a depressed person. Similarly, there's women married to guys who want more and more and more and more and more out of life, but the guy doesn't blame them. The guy sees them as colluding and helping the man achieve his goals. And you know what? He is having the amount of sex he wants to have. And so therefore, does his whole personality change? No. But does he move to a different goal and not perseverate on the marriage being the source of all of his ills? Yes. So he goes and runs a marathon. He has sex with her a few times a week. Okay, fine, that's fine. Guess what? It didn't transform my life, but she's trying. So you know what could transform my life? I'm going to get in the best fucking shape of my life at age 45. Sound familiar? Yes, because many men act like this. So, but is he unhappy with his marriage then? No. So if you try to transform your spouse's life by doing what you can do, by facilitating what you can facilitate, they may be very happy with you, but yes, remain having their personality. Think about it like this, if you don't believe me. Does your spouse act the same with all your children? No. There's some children where even if your spouse is pretty annoying, irritating in whatever way, has high standards, has low standards, whatever your problem is, are they equally do they parent all children equally? Certainly not. So who are they better with? The kid that somehow is better with them. So if they are very laid back, then it's the laid back kid. If they are very, intense, then it's the kid who has 25 hobbies. Whatever. Like there's some kid that your spouse parents better. If you have only one child, think about all of your extended family. Are they the same with every human? Obviously not. So there are ways for even your spouse whose personality may not be a walk through the park, not that yours is, but there's people that they're better with. Why don't you be one of those people, right? I mean, they only have so much that they could change in their personality, but they could be happy with you, and then they could turn their attention to something else. So if your wife, let's say, really, really wants a beach house, and you got the money for a beach house, but you're just kind of being a dick because you're like, you know what? So what? I'm going to buy another house for us not to have sex in? That's how it would kind of go. Once you're feeling agitated and bitter and everything, then you start to have these sorts of conversations in your head, hopefully only in your head, but you start to make snarky remarks. You may even say that one. You may think that one's a pretty good joke. It's not. So let's say she really wants the beach house and then you're an obstruction to this because despite having the money to do it, despite actually thinking it might be a pretty good idea, you're just like, fuck you. You don't do anything for me. Why should I do it, for you? If this is who you are, how's your marriage ever going to improve? Whereas if you actually try to say, you know what? She works really hard, so do I. She wants this thing. She's always wanted a beach house. This was a thing since she was a little girl, etc., etc. I'm going to give it to her. I'm going to say, you know what? You really want the beach house? I'm going to make it happen. Fine. So you make the beach house happen. She is going to be happier with you in most situations. There are some situations where you're on the precipice of divorce and it's just one more asset to divide. But that's not a good way to think about it, right? Because in the majority of cases, a person can really tell if you have a genuine desire to make them happy and to transform their life in whatever way you can. So the same thing with sex, which is obviously the hot button issue and such a common problem that I discuss it ad nauseum, right? If your husband is constantly saying that his life would be so different if he was able to touch you randomly. So, I understand what it is to be a highly sensitive person, but if you can get to where he can come up and give you a hug and a kiss during the day, maybe really he's going to feel a lot better. And then is he going to turn into this wonderful, calm person where everything is transformed in his life completely? No, but the relationship may be transformed because of your effort. And if you ask if I've seen that, yes. I have seen people have enough sex. Yes. And it isn't because a person gives them one more, lackluster, grudging performance per week. It's because a person had an epiphany. Oh my God, you know what? Physical love really is important to them. So I'm going to change how I think about it. I'm going to really change how I think about it. The same as people change if like a kid gets a diagnosis of ADHD. You're like, wow, He wasn't just being an asshole, my child. He really couldn't listen. Holy shit. So I am going to interact with him a lot different. I am going to say things in this way, and I'm going to make these kinds of charts, and I'm going to, go through his homework with him because apparently he can't fucking do it himself. He wasn't being difficult. He really had a condition. People have epiphanies all the time. So you can have them about your spouse too. So what I'm saying is, if you try to transform your life, your spouse's life in the ways that they have told you would be meaningful to them, they are not going to transform as a total human being. But how's that your goal? That really is codependency. To say that you should be able to change a depressed wife into somebody who's not depressed? How? Are you God? No. Are you going to be able to change a husband who always wants more, next, into somebody who isn't? No. But what you can do is make them happy with you because they feel that there is genuine, authentic effort emanating from you. And that makes them feel good. And that makes them feel heard and validated. And it makes them feel like there's somebody in the room that's actually been listening and giving a shit when they talk. So even if you are somebody that is like, no, there's no amount of sex that would be enough for my husband, I entreat you to say that may be true if it was only sex that you were grudgingly doling out drip by drip. Yeah, but there is actually, because I have seen people happier in second marriages. That's the thing. There are actually changes, not in the person's core. I've said this over and over. I have even a post about this, what divorce will and will not fix in your life. One thing it'll fix is you could be happier in your next relationship. But are your core issues going to evaporate? No. You got to work on your core issues. Some of them never evaporate. You could have treatment-resistant depression for the rest of your life, as many of us do, that recurs forever on and off. But at least the relationship doesn't have to be a problem. Because think about it. What if on top of everything that happened to you right now, your car broke down? Well, that would suck, right? Your day would be worse. So things can make your day worse. And then the next day, your car gets fixed. You would be a little bit happy. You would go back to baseline. But everybody agrees that it would be worse to have your car break down than not have your car break down. So thus, it is worse to not have something that you want than to have it. This doesn't mean that you don't want also other things or that your entire personal existential issues are solved as a human. It means that if there's something you could do to transform your spouse's life for the better, on the margins, in whatever compartment you can fix things, try to do it. It doesn't mean your entire personality has to be based on making them happy. That's codependent. But when they specifically come to you and say, can you do X for me? Why not genuinely try with an open heart and see what happens? Because the majority of people can recognize true, genuine effort. And the other thing is, people don't like to embarrass their spouse. I see this all the time to people, and it's like so simple, but they've never thought about it. It's like if you take your wife out on a date, right? You're like, no, it has to be totally perfect. Otherwise she loses her shit and blah. She's so not pleasable. She can't ever be happy. She always wants better. No, if you really gave it your A game to have a romantic date, really tried you really tried. She is, unless she is truly the meanest person in the whole world, which is probably not, she doesn't want to embarrass you, honestly. Like she wouldn't want to be like, this sucks, if you were really trying. Now, if you're not trying, which is probably where you're at, then you're probably like, oh, here we go. It's fucking date night. I'm not going to get laid anyway. Here, let's go to Olive Garden. If you do that, then she picks up on that. And sure, she's going to be like, this is a shithole. Well, why not? Because honestly, you think it is too, and you don't give a shit. And a lot of people are in this tit for tat, fuck you, who can care less about pleasing the other person competition, which is a horrible place for the marriage to be, and generally shows that you should have been in couples counseling years before it got to that point, but the second best time is today. But anyway, the same thing goes with sex. If you were really trying to do what your husband wanted in bed, but it was just kind of like you didn't know how to do it right or something, he's not going to want to embarrass you. He's going to think it's like sweet that you're trying. There's no man who's like, yeah, my wife really tried to be sexy, but you know what? I told her it sucked, and good that she cried, really, because I only have very specific standards for sexual experience, and she should have gone through my Pornhub history and really made it happen. No man says anything like that unless they're really a sociopath or the meanest person in the world. If your wife is trying to do something that she thinks is sexy, most guys are like, oh, that's nice, that's cute. Maybe maybe we could build on this, like even if it's like completely like strange and bizarre. So the point is, people are not out to get one another. They can see what genuine effort is, and they don't want to be nasty about it. What they will be nasty about, though, is a complete lack of any effort. Nobody's got trouble really being nasty about that. So if your wife is like, oh, here, come on, let's have sex. Yep, but sex time. We have to have sex so you don't act like an asshole. So let's go. That's what those podcasts say, right? The ones that you make me listen to. I have to have sex with you. Okay, here we go. Well, then you're going to be like, this is terrible. You're terrible. And that's going to be a fight because it started as a fight. It basically started as a gauntlet thrown down with somebody saying, here is the least possible. This is the spirit of the spirit of the law died. It's like the letter of the law, nowhere near the spirit of the law, barely even the letter of the law. I'm doing it just so I could say that I did it and just so that you're not up my ass. Of course, it doesn't work to do anything like that. So if you get anything out of this, it should be to try to engage with your spouse in a way with a full heart, good intentions, and to transform whatever aspect of their life they're very unhappy about and that they tell you that they're very unhappy about. Because it's not going to change who they are at a core level, you're right, but it will make them happier with you. They could be a person who's happy in their relationship, just like your partner may be a miserable motherfucker in many aspects, but they love their kid or they love their dog. There is an aspect in which they're okay, in which they don't hate everything, right? If it's like when they're playing video games or when they're petting the dog or something, you can be that. You can be the dog. You can be the person or creature with whom they have no trouble. So don't get caught in this loop of, well, since I cannot transform my partner into a totally happy person, I'm not going to try to impact their life at all. It's meaningless. Don't do that because that's not true. There are ways that a better life, in whatever way they define that, in whatever way they think you can do it for them, would be transformational in as much as they could be a miserable motherfucker that has a happy marriage. And there are such people. All right, hopefully this was a different perspective. That is what I try to do. Please do subscribe, follow me, and if you ever need a therapist, remember I have a whole group practice, Best Life Behavioral Health, hiring new people very frequently, many now that work with couples. So especially if you're in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, reach out. All right, and other states as well for me personally. Okay, talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.